You think Ian Garry has a shot?
I think Ian has a real chance. If Ian Garry can get off sharp combinations early, he could stun him. He's fast.
He's fast. Yeah.
Everything's like, Gary's no joke, man. He's dangerous. He also f***ed up Shavkat's knee. The bottom line about Islam is no one's able to get away from him. He gets a hold of you, you're a fucksville. Very good standing up.
This has been the year of the underdog. Had Ian Garry said what he's saying now, a year ago, people would have laughed him out of a building. But when you think back to the results of the title fights this year, it's not that hard not to find some belief in that. I would encourage him, though, let go of the idea that you want to call your shot and you call your shot later in the fight so that people don't have an opinion of what happened. It doesn't matter what happens if you beat the best fighter in the world across all weight classes, pound for pound. It doesn't matter how you win. It only matters that you win. And if Ian Garry wins by a fast knockout, if Ian Garry wins by a submission, or if Ian Garry wins by a decision, it doesn't matter. That guy Adriano Martins that beat Islam back in the day,
Islam Makhachev and his upcoming fight. He made a successful debut in the upper weight class, step up to welterweight. What difference does it take when you stepping up in the weight class on a championship level?
Yeah, Islam's going to fight against Ian Garry next, right? I assume that Islam's going to win that one just because of his wrestling pedigree. You know, to be able to dictate if the fight's going to be standing or on the ground, it's a great gift. Another guy with a strong team behind him, strong faith. I'm not rooting for anyone in that fight because I don't know either one of those guys on the personal level, but I'm assuming that Islam's going to win. That's my prediction.
Did you hear the news about Islam fighting Garry?
No.
Who do you think would win that one?
I mean, Islam is champion and he has a lot of experience, but I think young Garry has a chance.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think so. Young Garry has to stop his takedowns, and striking young Garry is very smart, calculated fighter.
He's above Habib. He is above Habib. Finishes, body of work, both divisions. For sure he is.
But look, many
still in it, still at it.
Body
but there's a little bit of people are impressionable. Talking about they're trying to they're taunting him to get out of it. There's a lot left in that boy. There's a lot left in that boy. And he should recognize that and keep going. I have him above both his teammates there in Cormier and
Ian Garry is a very, very confident kid. Ian Garry had this to say today.
I want a 4th round finish. I don't want any early knockout, because then there's ifs, buts, maybes, there's excuses. I want 4 rounds of domination, and in that 4th round, I'm going to tell everybody, I'm going to do it now. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to finish him.
I love confidence. I love a guy that believes in himself. I'm not saying Ian Garry cannot beat Islam Makhachev. What I'm saying is, what I don't understand, though, is sometimes a person is misguided in their thoughts.
Islam Makhachev fighting Ian Machado Garry.
Ian Garry, it's a tough opponent, very good striker. But Islam, once again, his goal going to be to bring the fight to the ground. If he's able to do that, he's going to have an edge. Islam has the edge in terms of skills because he's more well-rounded. He can do it all. Maybe he will eventually go up in the middleweight, try to go the 3-weight class club.
Islam fight once a year. Fight Ian Garry. That's going to be a sick fight. Sick fight.
I've seen with Ian Garry, he's a guy that can get it done. Islam is one of the greatest to ever do it in this game. He's dominant in his field, and now he's at welterweight. Against JDM, I thought JDM scrambling would give him problems, but nah, he didn't. Another one of those ones where it's like destiny. A guy like Ian Machado, who's come up, had this dream. He's been saying, I'm the future. And now the future is here. So will he get it done?
You think Ian is a good choice to test Islam, who will be going for his 17th straight UFC win, trying to break Anderson Silva's record, which he's currently tied with.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's wow. I think it's going to be a good fight. Ian Garry, it's definitely a tough opponent, very good striker. But Islam, once again, his goal going to be to bring the fight to the ground, and I think if he's able to do that, he's going to have an edge. If Ian Garry is able to keep it on the feet, and Ian going to have an edge, so it's going to be interesting. Islam has the edge in terms of skills because he's more well-rounded. He can do it all. And he, especially with his grappling, he's got an edge in that department. And I think that's what he's going to try to go for. Maybe he will eventually go up in the middleweight and try to go the three-weight class club.
Islam Makhachev, Ian Machado Garry, August 15th, Philadelphia, UFC 330 main event, Xfinity Mobile Arena. There you have it. It is a done deal. The painful wait for Ian Machado Garry is over. The nonsense of, is it going to be Morales? Is it going to be this guy? Is he moving up? No, it was always going to be Ian. It was going to be Ian in Miami in April. That didn't pan out. It was going to be Ian from the get-go, and now we finally have the confirmation. It's Ian Machado Garry finally getting a chance.
Welterweights, like currently the top guys are Ian Garry, Michael Morales, Carlos Praches, all who are very dangerous in their own ways. But it seems like, you know, skill for skill, Islam has the ground edge over all of them. It's just, can he continue to level up on these guys?
Yeah, I think Islam has the edge in terms of skills because he's more well-rounded. He can do it all. And he, especially with his grappling, he's got an edge in that department. And I think that's what he's going to try to go for when he fights one of these guys.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how far he can go. If he can hit 20 UFC wins, that's another thing I never thought, like in a row, that I never thought I'd see in my lifetime, just because so many crazy things can happen. You can suffer an injury in the fight. You can get screwed by the judges. Like, there's a million things. So to do it that consistently is like one of the more impressive things I think I've seen in the sport.
If Islam just came forward and got in Ian Garry's face and started bombing away, Ian Garry's gonna be like, what the hell is going on right now?
I just think the speed.
Now, I don't think that's a good game plan.
No, the speed's going to be difficult for Islam in the beginning. The movement, the speed, the way he punches, the way he kicks at the knee, the speed of his hands, all those things will be difficult for Islam in the beginning. Once the fight hits the ground, I don't think it gets out of the first round. I think he subs him with the side choke, or he subs him. Yeah, he subs him with a side choke. I think Ian Garry gives his back to get up. That's even worse. I think that he'll just get to the back, control the position. I think he'll work for a finish. I don't think Ian Garry has the submission defense enough for Islam. Look, he's been able to sub guys that have better credentials than him on the ground, you know, than Ian Garry on the ground. Like, all of them.
Oh, yeah.
Dustin Poirier's got better credentials on the ground.
Yeah, the belts are almost fake.
Moicano's got better credentials. Charles Oliveira's got better credentials. These guys have had submission wins over world-class jiu-jitsu guys as well as world-class MMA guys. Ian Garry has never had an opportunity, or never even showcased any of his grappling skills at all.
When Joe Rogan starts talking about a fighter with that kind of conviction, the combat sports world stops and listens, not because Rogan is simply a commentator, but because he has sat octagon side for over 2 decades, watched champions rise and fall from inches away, and developed an eye for danger that very few people in this sport can match. So when his words about Ian Machado Garry and Islam Makhachev carry that level of intensity, it means something real is being recognized here. And what is being recognized is this: Islam Makhachev may be walking into the most complicated fight of his championship reign. That statement alone would have seemed almost absurd 12 months ago. Islam has been operating at a level that made the lightweight division feel almost unsolvable. His grappling system is suffocating. His striking has evolved beyond what most people gave him credit for. His defensive awareness is elite. He does not get finished. He does not panic. He does not fade. He is, by almost every analytical measure, the most complete fighter in the world, pound for pound right now. And yet, here we are. Serious voices inside the combat sports community are not brushing Ian Machado Garry aside. They are leaning forward. To understand why, you have to understand what Garry actually brings to this fight, because the surface level read on him does not do justice to the real threat he represents. Ian Machado Garry is not just a tall, rangy welterweight who moved up in weight. He is a fighter built almost perfectly to create problems for the kind of pressure-based, grappling-heavy game that Islam has used to dismantle every opponent placed in front of him. Garry's footwork is genuinely elite for this level of competition. He does not stand still. He does not wait to be cornered. He moves laterally, he angles off, and he forces opponents to reset constantly rather than settle into a rhythm. For a fighter like Islam, whose grappling becomes most dangerous when he can cut off space, establish physical contact, and drag the fight into the clinch, facing someone who refuses to give him that contact is a legitimate stylistic puzzle. And then there is the range. Garry fights long. He uses every inch of his frame to keep opponents at a distance hands, where his straight punches land clean and his kicks can fire without risk. The left hand in particular has become one of the most discussed weapons in the sport over the last 18 months. It arrives at unexpected angles, carries genuine stopping power, and has dropped opponents who thought they were outside of danger. The question being asked right now in serious analytical circles is this: what happens when Islam tries to close the distance against a fighter who punishes that exact movement with pinpoint accuracy? Those who study this matchup closely are not claiming Garry wins easily. Nobody serious is suggesting that, but they are pointing out something important. Every fighter who has struggled against Islam, even briefly, has done so by making him work to close distance rather than allowing the fight to be dictated from the inside. Garry does that naturally. It is not a game plan he has to force. It is simply how he fights, and that is what has the combat sports community genuinely engaged with this fight in a way that feels different from Islam's recent title defenses. Islam's path to victory remains the most logical outcome on paper, and that needs to be stated clearly. His grappling is not simply a strength, it is a system. When he gets his hands on an opponent, the options available to him multiply in ways that most fighters simply cannot manage. He can take the back, he can threaten the arm, he can work the body from the top position, he can grind opponents into the canvas until their will fractures, and his chin and cardio mean that even if Garry lands early and creates some initial chaos, Islam has the experience and composure to survive the storm and bring the fight back to his terms. But here is the layer that makes this genuinely interesting. Garry has shown an ability to maintain his output and his footwork deep into fights. He does not slow down the way many long fighters do. His conditioning has visibly improved with each major performance, and there is now a version of this fight where he keeps Islam honest on the feet for long enough to steal rounds, or more importantly, long enough to catch him coming in. The tactical chess match at the center of this fight comes down to one core question: can Islam solve the footwork puzzle quickly enough to implement his grappling before Garry builds confidence and momentum on the feet? Because if Garry gets through the first round relatively clean, his belief in this fight will grow, and a confident Garry with his striking firing is a genuinely dangerous version of a fighter who already has serious tools. Analysts within the combat sports community have pointed out that Islam's wrestling entries, as effective as they are, require a certain degree of physical contact to initiate. Against a moving target who punishes linear forward movement, those entries become harder to time, harder to execute, and harder to sustain across 25 minutes. That does not make them impossible. Islam is too intelligent and too experienced for that, but it adds a layer of complexity that this matchup presents in a way that several of Islam's recent opponents simply could not. Several respected voices have noted that Garry's mental approach to this fight may matter as much as his physical tools. He has spoken about this opportunity with a seriousness and a calm that suggests he is not overwhelmed by the moment. He is not approaching Islam as an immovable object. He is approaching him as a beatable man, which psychologically is exactly the right place to be walking into a championship fight. The general sentiment among professionals who have studied this closely is not that Garry is the favorite. It is that Garry is a genuinely dangerous opponent in a way that deserves serious discussion rather than dismissal. And when voices like Rogan, who have watched this sport at the highest level for longer than many current fighters have been competing, speak about Garry with that kind of emphasis, it adds weight to that sentiment. What is at stake here goes beyond the lightweight title. For Islam, this is the fight that could define the ceiling of his legacy. Defending a title is one thing. Defending it against a live, stylistically awkward, physically imposing challenger who has been specifically discussed as a real threat is another. A dominant performance here would silence every remaining question about whether Islam has a genuine weakness. A difficult night would not necessarily cost him the belt, but it would reshape how we discuss his place in the pound-for-pound conversation. For Garry, the stakes are even more straightforward. He has moved through this sport with the belief that he belongs at the very top. This is the moment where that belief either becomes fact or gets tested in the most unforgiving environment possible. A win over Islam Makhachev would immediately place him among the most discussed fighters on the planet. It would not just be a title, it would be a statement. When you strip away everything else, this is a fight between a champion who has looked nearly unbeatable and a challenger who is built in a way that creates genuine problems for what makes that champion so dangerous. That combination, stylistic difficulty meeting elite championship pedigree, is what makes UFC 330 feel like something the combat sports world is watching with real attention. The prediction here leans toward Islam. His grappling system, his championship composure, and his ability to adapt mid-fight are factors that are very difficult to account for, regardless of the stylistic challenges a challenger presents. But this is not a comfortable prediction, and that fact alone tells you everything about how serious a threat Ian Machado Garry represents. So here is the question for you watching this right now. Do you believe Garry's footwork and striking range are enough to keep Islam at bay long enough to pull off one of the biggest upsets upsets in lightweight history, or does Islam find a way to drag him into deep water before the championship rounds arrive? Drop your prediction in the comments. This is the kind of fight that separates the casual watchers from the people who truly understand what they are seeing inside that octagon. And if you want the deepest breakdowns, the sharpest analysis, and the fastest reactions every time something major happens in combat sports, subscribe now. This community does not miss a thing.